Here we go, 365 Sports. Michael Swain covers KU for 247. They started their fall football workouts today. 3 yesterday in the Big 12. Today, TCU and also KU. And Michael joins Craig Smoke, Paul Catalina, and David Smoke. Michael, is it simple as how Jaylen Daniels stays healthy, how KU goes this year, and how deep or better they can be after a very nice, solid season in 23?
I think you're right. You don't want to be reductive and say a season comes down to one player, but I think you're talking about KU reaching, what I think people in the media feel, right, which is, top of the Big 12, near the top, competing for a spot in the title game. Look, I think a lot of that does rely on the health of Jaylen Daniels. He's a difference maker. You can just see in the numbers, right? I think it's like a 5-to-1 touchdown interception ratio in the games he's been healthy over the last 2 seasons. But obviously that has been the big issue so far. And so he's starting on a good footing here. Was able to practice fully, did a lot of 11-on-11 stuff today as camp got underway. That's a huge positive for KU. But I really do think, for KU fans and for anyone tracking Kansas, I think staying tuned to the health of Jaylen Daniels over the next couple weeks and couple months is going to be really important, because I think as talented as he is, he still has not played a full college football season and been healthy for the entirety of it. So I think everyone around Lawrence is hoping and I think rooting for Jaylen to be able to have the season that I think a lot of people believe he can have if he's able to play 12, 13, if they're lucky enough, 14, types of games. And from there, you kind of let the cards fall where they may. K's got a light schedule this year, and I think if they have a healthy Daniels, he's going to be the type of guy that can help elevate this team to a level that I don't know if many people would have expected, 3-4 years ago when Lance Leipold was getting things started here.
Michael, the defense has steadily improved over Lance Leipold's time, and that was one of the things that 2 years ago you knew that if Jaylen Daniels is in the game, they had it within, 2 scores or less in the fourth quarter, that it was going to be a game and they could maybe come back and win that. Last year, the defense could win games for them in spots. Do you think this is a team that can maybe win some games with their defense this year in case they do have an off night offensively?
Well, I think the secondary players have the ability to do that for KU. You look at having, Kobe Bryant and Melo Dotson. I'm hard-pressed to find a more proven duo of cornerbacks, I think, in the conference. I'm not well-versed enough to say the country. I don't know enough to say that. But at least in the Big 12, I think those two are among the top duos, in the conference. And they're the types of guys that if you're talking about a close game and you need a stop, you need a turnover, they can come up with those types of plays. And I think for KU last season, what made the defense take that big step from being bottom of the conference to being I think they were fourth in total defense, it was the play of someone like Austin Booker off the edge, creating pressure, creating havoc. That was a huge deal for KU to put pressure on quarterbacks where they're in compromised positions. And they do have to make a split-second decision, and maybe they throw it to Melo or Kobe. And I think for KU's defense this year, the key really is going to be who steps up at that kind of rush end spot. And you look at the talent in the room. It's By Job, a former top 100 recruit. You got Dak Brinkley, a true freshman 4-star, Deshaun Warner, another true freshman, but the highest rated high school signee in Kansas history. There's plenty of talent in the room. It's just guys that haven't played a lot of football yet. So I think for KU, you look at the secondary, you look at safety, what they have in Marvin Grant, who's going to play a versatile role. He's someone that was kind of in Kenny Logan's shadow a little bit, but don't be mistaken. He's a really talented player. He started every game for Purdue during his last season there. I believe that would have been 2022. So, for this team, the secondary looks really good. The linebacking core, I think the top 3 are good. You wonder about the depth, but I think like how the offense, right, can Jaylen Daniels be healthy? Well, I think for the defense, it's going to come down to, hey, can one of these super talented defensive ends come through and be that guy that can go create some havoc on third downs or just generic passing downs?
Michael, how much do you think they miss, and maybe that's not the right word because that means you're probably not having much success, but how different do you think life after Andy Kotelnicki will be as they make the switch to Jeff Grimes at OC?
I don't expect it to be too different. That's something that at least the messaging coming out of the program has been this is not going to be a huge jump. And I think even if you look at just the basic principles of offense, Andy Kotelnicki and Jeff Grimes are not too dissimilar, right? Both want to run outside zone. They both would like to use the tight ends. They both really want to be physical football teams. I think for KU, kind of some of the differences might be, the option run game with Jaylen was so potent, and having an athletic quarterback in Jason Bean, even if you didn't do a lot of option stuff, still offered a different dynamic. And I think losing this is going to get way inside football, but Matt Lubick was an analyst for KU. He's gone to Nevada. He's someone that was really important in establishing that quarterback run game. Well, now you've lost Lubick and Kotelnicki at the same time. So the question is, okay, is that quarterback run game still going to be there with Jeff Grimes? We're not sure yet, but I think something that Grimes is going to add is more of the screen game. That's not something Kansas did a lot of under Kotelnicki. I think some of the outside zone stuff that they're going to do, I think some of the jet motion stuff they're going to do might be a little bit different as well. So I think broadly the same principles of offense will be the same, but I think in terms of the individual play calls, adding some things, subtracting some things, I think there might be some tweaks. But look, if you're turning on a Kansas football game, I still think you're going to see the similar high potent offense that you've seen the last couple of years.
We had Coach Leipold on at Big 12 Media Days in Vegas. Really, really enjoyed the segment. And he kind of gives you that look like he's angry. And yet I've heard he's got a teddy bear type of a heart and at times. But he will – there are consequences when you don't do well. It is one of his biggest challenges for a program that we know, and I get tired of hearing about it, but for the longest of time they didn't win. And now all of a sudden they've had some success, and now the expectations are pretty good. Is that one of the challenges, is making sure they don't forget about how they got to last year?
Of course. I think the challenge you run into with any program that is on the rise, like KU's is, and I think I can use this as a comparison. So I covered Iowa State during that 2021 season when they had, Brock Purdy back, Breece Hall back, right? All this talent was back. The sky was the limit. And it didn't really work out. And, you look at Matt Campbell, right, and past head coaching experience was good, but not national championships, not winning consistently. Well, I mean, you want to go look at Lance Leipold. They didn't lose a game at Wisconsin Whitewater for, I think, like 2 years in a row. They won several national championships. I can't think of a coach that knows how to keep things ticking forward than Lance Leipold. And I think you see it, right, with the basketball program with Bill Self, right, where every year is a new year. Every year you're trying to reach a different new high. And I think at some point from the coach down, that resonates with the players, where if you continue to preach the same thing day in and day out, regardless of how good or bad your team is doing, that's how you breed some good habits. And I think for the head coaching position for Kansas, I can't think of a better person to try and do that than Leipold, who has done it and has done it consistently at other places. And I think now the program and the players in it have had success now. They know what it takes to win games. And just based on what the players are saying, it sounds like they're a group that still knows that they have not arrived yet and that they still have more to accomplish. And I think that is so huge. And it's such a cliche. And as a writer, you're never a fan of when coaches use cliches, but I think it's pretty accurate, right? You just got to attack every single day. Take it one day at a time, and that's how you reach your best. You don't get too far in front of your skis. You don't look ahead and say, man, our schedule is really light, or man, we've got one of the best, offensive skill rooms maybe in the conference, one of the best quarterbacks in the conference. You look at it, how can I get better today? And I think that's the thing that Leipold has done a very good job of establishing in the KU program, where that's the mindset the players have. And I think that's how you see programs like Alabama or Georgia win on such a consistent level. It's because they take that same exact approach every day.
If Devin Neal was in a conference that didn't have Ollie Gordon and Taj Brooks, would he be the first team running back?
I think so. And look, I think the Taj Brooks thing is super interesting, right? You look at Devin being selected as the first team All Big 12 running back by the coaches. And nothing changed as far as I'm concerned over the last 5-6 months. So I think, he probably should have been on there over Taj, but again, probably a little bit of bias there, covering Devin and seeing just how talented he is, not getting maybe as many touches as someone Taj got. But I think you're right. Like, look, the Big 12 straight up, I think, has the best talent of running backs maybe in the country. I haven't really looked into the SEC yet, but I know at least in the Big 10 and ACC, like, I think the Big 12 is stacked. I think it's really exciting to look at this conference and the offensive firepower you have at the running back spot, and to think that, someone like Devin isn't going to be a preseason all Big 12 guy, I think that just speaks volumes about how talented guys like Taj and Ollie are. And I think those two are going to have really good seasons, and I'm really fascinated to see how that end of season all Big 12 ballot looks, because that's going to really be a tough one to make as well.
Yeah, especially with 4 extra teams to try to sort through and learn about. And it's hard to know and get too in the weeds on every single team, right, Michael? But that's why we have guys like you on who do to get down there in terms of Kansas in particular. So my question for you is, what is more of a micro storyline that not most of the general public or people like ourselves are talking about when it comes to KU football that you find to be a very important storyline going on in camp and heading into the season?
Yeah, well, I think you look at Kansas, right? And I mean, you guys have followed Big 12 for long enough. You know what the Kansas offensive lines used to look like. Mm-hmm. 6'3" guys that are about 290, 285, right?
Yeah.
And then now you look at this offensive line, and you've got a former top 100 recruit, Texas A&M transfer, Bryce Foster, who I saw at camp today, and my God, the guy's massive. You see why he was able to start games as a true freshman in the SEC. Well, he's going to be KU center this year. And then you look at left tackle, and you lose Dominic Pooney to the NFL, but then all of a sudden it's Logan Brown, a former 5-star, who is going to most likely win the starting left tackle job. Well, he's 6'6", a little bit over 310, I want to say. Then you've got experienced guys like Michael Ford and Kobe Baines on the interior of the line. And at right tackle, there's Bryce Cabledew, who he's in his 3rd or 4th season of starting. So I think a storyline that might not get covered a lot because offensive lines aren't super sexy is the fact that this offensive line lost a multi-year starter in Mike Nowitzki and an NFL player in Dominic Pooney, and might actually still be really good. And I think for KU, the ability to be really physical in the trenches is how you become a more consistent football team, when you're not having to rely on Jaylen Daniels making splash plays through the air. It's when you're able to create holes for Devin Neal to use that talent. And I think that's something that, as a football nerd, I think is really interesting, looking at just the physical nature of an offensive line or defensive line. I think for KU, the fact that this offensive line lost what it did and could still be as good or maybe take even a step forward physicality-wise, I think is really important.
It's a great answer. Final thing for you, Michael. Obviously, they're going to be, in a weird spot as far as a temporary home setting because of all of the good news that's happening as far as facilities and whatnot. With that in mind, the facilities and the expectations. I mean, I don't know how long you've covered KU at this point, but I don't think that you've gotten accustomed yet to them being, talked about as far as a Big 12 contender and favorite, but that's where they find themselves. So what's it like around Lawrence with football season around the corner right now? Is it as exciting maybe as you've seen it ever, perhaps?
Oh, most definitely. As long as I've been covering the team, and I started covering it, back 2017, 2018-ish. So, it's been like today started camp. And for example, like you look at our website and the engagement is so much higher than it was last year or even the year before. Fans are really excited about this team. And I think everybody around the program in Lawrence and Kansas City, just any Kansas fan, I think recognizes the opportunity here, right? It's kind of a, supply demand chart of great team, really experienced team meets light schedule. And so I think everybody understands what is, I wouldn't say at stake, but what the opportunity that lies in front of KU for this season. I think everyone's really excited, and it's going to be different having games, 2 games at Children's Mercy Park where the soccer team plays, Sporting Kansas City, and then obviously having 4 games at Arrowhead. That's going to feel different, but I think if anybody drives around Lawrence, right, I was there earlier today, and that stadium is coming along fast, and it looks really, really good. So I think there's just a lot of excitement around this KU program right now, and it's just such a different feel than 4+ years ago when you're talking about a team that didn't win a game under less miles. So it's crazy to think of how far things have come in such a short amount of time. I think it's why Leipold is proving to be, I think, just one of the best college football coaches in the country.
Michael, thank you. Appreciate you being a part of the show and also moving around a little bit from what we had originally. We'll be in touch again. Have a great day, and appreciate your time.
All good, guys. Thank you so much for having me on.
Michael
Appreciate
Swain, Kansas 247 on the Jayhawks show. Quite the story with some dynamic playmakers, Jaylen Daniels, obviously, but much more than that. And really, really enjoyed our conversation with Lance Leipold up in Vegas. And we hadn't had him on in a couple of years, and I just kind of like the way he goes about his business. We'll hear